Now we are heading towards the last session for the day, and the last session will be by Brittney Gray. She's from Singapore, started Chartered Bank, and she is an experienced transformation leader and agile practitioner with an expertise in delivering complex programs of work with large scale globally distributed teams. She's worked across with several different market service line business units and number of digital first initiatives. So she works as an Asian region lead at Standard Chartered. So let's welcome her, and she'll be enlightening us how agile is changing in this new normal world of COVID-19. Welcome. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm also going to share a link in the group so that if you'd like to track me as I go today, you're more than welcome to. And the document the Miro board that I'll be sharing is going to be available to you after this. Just one moment, I'll stop sharing. I'll just find that chat again. Just one moment. There we go. So there's the board. So you should be able to link straight into that. And there's a little activity that we can either use the Zoom chat for or the board. Okay, so I'll just revert back to sharing my screen. Okay, I can see everyone's joining. That's great. All right, can you see my screen? Yes, okay. Excellent. So my topic today is sustainable agile in the new normal world. And the reason that I chose this is I think that there's been a significant amount of change in the way we do things at work, at home, in our daily lives. And it's important to understand how we shift ourselves into this new normal and what it actually means for us in leadership, in our day-to-day lives, in all aspects. And also understand how Agile has evolved to meet the new demands and the new uncertainties of this new normal world. So my presentation is also going to significantly link to the Sustainable Agile Manifesto, which was authored by Sandeep Joshi, who's also on the line today. Welcome, Sandeep. Okay, so when we think about the new normal, what we're talking about here and in today's context is the new daily lifestyle and trends regarding everything from the use of technology, the way we live, the way we move, the way we work. So when we think of that, the spark words that came to mind in discussing this topic was remote working, super distributed teams, technology underpinning all interactions, and acceptance and awareness about the level of uncertainty around us. So what is the Manifesto for Sustainable Agile? Let's have a look. So Sandeep Joshi has done a number of years of research around this. And through his understanding and research, even with other framework authors in the world, he was able to see these trends and patterns, even beginning from 2011. So from his research and experience in many different environments with many different leaders, organizations, and all of these frameworks, he was beginning to see a shift away from just a focus on the original manifesto, developing software and using Agile to achieve that, and into more, how do we make it more sustainable across all industries, across all contexts, and what are the fundamentals that would be involved in this? What are the things that we need to take account of when looking at that? And so the Manifesto for Sustainable Agile was born, and it was born in the midst of the pandemic, the year 2020, after years of that research, discussion, and learnings. Okay, and basically it came down to this: why we need a new manifesto or renewed manifesto. One, it goes beyond IT. It can cover everything from HR, marketing, and risk. It's about the future of work and how we operate in this new world. and also moving away from becoming less fragile and more sustainable in how we actually work and move forward, and what's left at the end of that. So we have a community, the Sustainable Agile community, that have contributed to the manifesto and continue to operate to this day. So if you would like to join us in our workspace or in future events, the details are available here. And we'd love to hear your insights after today's discussion and deep dive into the core values of this manifesto. What are your thoughts? What do you think about this manifesto and how do you relate to it? So let's get into what are the core values. Core value number 1, co-located minds over co-located people. Let's take a moment to think about what that means in our minds. What would we draw if we had to draw that? Any suggestions? Feel free to type in the chat or directly here. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more about what this actually means. So today we're talking about, so what are the real life examples of this, but also what it means to make it stick, the sustainability component of it. What we've realized is it's more important to have the power of the minds and ideas together, to be co-located in our mental frame rather than our physical location. And that is true more than ever today. The physical co-location may in fact prove not to be as effective as we adopt new technologies and new ways of working. But it can only truly work if we're mentally present as well. As we've discussed this core value, people have also raised the issue of, well, how do we ensure co-located mindset? A co-located mindset is easy to see on the surface level. You've got your collaborative tools, Zoom, Miro, Microsoft Teams. You can have regular, clear communication. You can encourage people. You can celebrate diversity on a regular basis. Surface level. But what you're really seeking to make this stick is the engagement, a purpose-driven team, a sense of belonging, and a psychologically safe environment. So someone earlier today actually said something that hits this on the head, which is having a shared vision, having a shared problem can help us to reach that. When you bring a team together, how do you bring their minds together? One of the techniques that is widely being discussed right now is about bringing the problem to the people that can actually solve it. Having a shared vision, co-locating their minds. Mental presence being more important than physical presence. As you can see from some of these cartoons, it's easy to be physically present. It's much harder to have your mind in the game. So the takeaway here, 20% of it, you can see. The real crux of it is about the activities and the things that you do to actually bring that mindset, collective mindset, to the team, make it real, help them to get engaged. Okay, and I'd like to take a moment for this small activity. Given our discussion on this value so far, what does this value look like to you in real life? If your team truly have a co-located mindset, what are you seeing or what are you feeling? And I'll just put a timer. We'll take just 1 minute, 60 seconds to jot our thoughts down. Feel free to add them in the chat as well. And if you are not sure where we are, I've just brought everyone over. Thank you, Alison, for being the first to add. Open. So if you're not familiar with Miro as well, just double click the sticky. So hopefully it's quite intuitive. Whilst people are adding, I'd also say, so co-located minds, links into as well how you manage conflicts. And one of the techniques that I found really useful recently is using Miro or tools like this to understand where another person is coming from, or to help others actually map out where they're coming from and address a difference of opinion. Because unlike the old times where we could get to the whiteboard and map it out, we can't do that anymore. So we've got to learn these new habits and these new behaviors to understand what the problem is, to define it, to draw it, to see it, to feel it, and collocate our minds towards a common purpose or a common problem. Some excellent things coming in here. Empathy, listening. Now, please feel free to continue to add under this, and any questions as well under this core value, you're welcome. As we do that, I'm going to move to core value number 2. And please note these are not in chronological order, and I'll show you why when we bring it all together at the end. So core value number 2, collective outcomes over individual outputs. I'm sure you've all been in a position where there's an individual reward or a leader that has come in and said, we must look at the utilization of every single employee. Especially at the beginning of COVID, fear levels were very high. Is our productivity going to drop? Are we going to be able to deliver on time? So what we say as part of this manifesto is successful organizations will need to understand the collective output of the team and focus on the collective rather than the individual if they're to be successful. It's no longer about the productivity and utilization of the individual, which can in fact have really negative impacts such as burnout, health issues, and stress. Not to mention, the problems of today require so many different skills, subject matter experts. Think about an app development and the lead time associated with having separate teams to build that and the handoff. So if we are to be successful in this new uncertain environment, very demanding environment, we need to think about the collective, rewarding the collective, understanding the collective value, understanding that moving away from individual outputs can actually make perfect commercial sense, give us better lead times for our customers, and create dynamic, happy, cross-functional organizations or teams and individuals. So it's a big shift. And it does feel a little bit scary. The sentiment at first when you start these discussions is, what do you mean? How do I get the visibility over everything that everyone's doing? And we'll get to that in a minute. One example is Atlassian. And this is about, there's a video here that you can click on later, but they are very great at showcasing how they get a problem, find a group of diverse thinkers within the organization, and tackle that problem to deliver value to their customers or even internally. But it really does bring this core value to life. And lastly, I like to think of it like this. Individual excellence is great. It's wonderful to have fantastic people within the organization. But if we can have a collective vision and a collective approach to the way that we reward and organize our work, we're going to have a rock star status of an organization. All right. So what's the core value number 3 then? Speed to value over speed to market. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because many people think of value in all different contexts. Value is not a single measure or metric. You have to define it given your context, right? What does that mean? Well, some organizations would be thinking that the sustainability of their operations systems or their brand is value. Their competitiveness in the market, reducing risk, even 5-star ratings from the customer. It's all different. There's no cookie cutter approach. But what we do know is that if we prioritize the things that we truly need and balance purpose with profit, we create fantastic outcomes for not just the customers, but also the employees. So what we're seeing today is a shift to purpose-driven business models. And with purpose clearly defined, we get value. An example of that is at Unilever. And what they're saying is basically a well-known phrase, build it and they will come, does not work anymore. You have to have a purpose. You have to prioritize against that purpose. And of course, love your customers. So what are they saying over at Unilever? I intend to build further on Unilever's century-old commitment to responsible business. It's not about putting purpose ahead of profits. It is purpose that drives profits. And they've been shown to be very successful in that mission. What is that looking like? It's across all aspects of their business, bringing them together around a shared purpose to become more sustainable and also customer-centric. So that brings us to another little brainstorming. What does value mean to you? I'll put a little timer on. And in case anyone's lost. Great. Satisfaction, trust, something the receiver wants. Positivity. Awesome. And so I guess when we think about this, again, it comes back to what we're prioritizing. And one of the things that I think is really critical is if you don't know the why, if you don't know what you're doing for it, and it's all about volume and outputs, it's most likely that you're not operating with purpose to drive profitable outcomes or successful outcomes, long-term sustainable outcomes. Our final value, trust and empathy over command and control. So before we deep dive into this one, just think about a time when you've known and really felt, oh gosh, I'm in a command and control environment. What did that feel like? What did that look like? Were you getting emails every 5 minutes from someone telling you, have you done it yet? Is it resolved yet? Were things set for you in advance? Did you feel like you didn't have any inputs? What was that scenario? So trust and empathy. We understand that this underpins everything with respect to how creating high-performing teams, how we operate successfully as a collective, how we define purpose, and how we feel we're making contributions that mean something to us. Empathy and trust, as Sandeep has told me many times, if we get it right at the start, then we don't have to worry about all the issues that come from not putting in the effort to ensure your teams feel psychologically safe, with a nimble mindset, with the ability to have a difference of opinion, with the ability to speak up. If you truly have this at the outset, if you work towards that, you're setting yourselves up for success. And without empathy, there is no trust, right? So I took an example from a recent study about actually Zoom calls. And it's showing, and it's a bit of an odd example, I realize that, but it resonated with me because whilst it's fantastic, and this is a 20% surface level, but whilst it's fantastic to have your video on every day, if you're in a command control environment that mandates you must have your video on and you've got 12 hours back-to-back meetings, you are no doubt going to be burnt out, less engaged, and really struggling from a psychological and mental health perspective, right? And the studies are starting to show the impacts and the exhaustion it has on our brain. We have to be empathetic to these things. We have to trust that people are fundamentally doing the right thing and trying to do their best, working towards the collective outcome. So again, it's 80% mindset, fundamentally believing people are trying their best, realizing that the job is not to appear perfect, but to continuously get better, and maintaining your own curiosity and courage. The 20%, showing the understanding, being inclusive in your discussions or how you operate, being vulnerable and authentic, and experimenting, as well as celebrating the outputs of that experimentation. So how do we bring this all together? Well, firstly, without empathy and trust, we'd struggle to get to a collective outcome and collocated minds. Therefore, we'd be stuck back here before we'd be able to have any kind of speed to value, collaboration around what we're trying to achieve, understanding of the problem, and trust within one another, and empathy for one another, to give it our all, to be truly engaged, and to produce the best possible outcomes. So we're just going to zoom out and go back to the start here as well, because we have the author of this manifesto online as well. So Sandeep, if I may, would you like to add to the background behind this manifesto and where we are today?
Definitely. Thank you, Brittney. And thank you for going through the values and creating a very beautiful mirror out of these values and explaining it so delightfully. Thank you very much. So I think based on what we saw here, right? So this is, like Brittney was mentioning, my passion for sustainability has been there for last almost 10 years now. And I've been working on both sustainability and agility in the field. So one thing that I have realized that, thinking about maximizing the value is not the right approach. If you think about just me or we, then it's okay. But if you are thinking about the broader impact that we have as human beings in the society, as well as on the planet, we need to expand these values much forward than where we started with, right? So the notion of Agile Manifesto, as we all know, it was purely for software development, and in last 2 decades many people have done so many different efforts to expand it beyond IT, where now we are trying to look trying to apply it to HR and other things, where things are progressing. But is it really giving the right value? Are we forcing things upon these fields? This was the question that I started wondering with. And then worked with various different thought leaders, worked through different academics. So one of the things that I have been very passionate about is sustainability, and I worked with some of the Harvard professors, similarly Oxford professors, whom I reached out, and I basically talked about what exactly sustainability can be, what exact things that we can do that can make sustainability mainstreams, and that's how this manifesto was born. So again, in summary, right, this is a renewed manifesto in my view. This is not a replacement for the Agile Manifesto in any which ways. It's an extension to it. And we want to now look at from where we are, right? It's all about understanding and discovering better ways of working and better ways of living. So we extend from I to we, and now we are looking at us as a society. And that's what makes this really powerful. That's about it. Thank you, Brittney, for that. Happy to answer any questions if on any values or anything you might have for me.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Yeah, I think so. It was a short segment today, but hopefully this has been helpful. And as Sandeep said, it's not a replacement. It's a building upon and in response to the world as it is today and has evolved over the last 10 years. Any questions?
Hi, Brittney and Sandeep. Thanks for that sharing about sustainability and the manifesto on sustainable agile. I would definitely agree to the point that there's no greater success than sustainability. And yes, for things to change, we must change, and it is definitely our it's a collective and individual responsibility. So I'm very glad to hear it from Sandeep as well when he added on. And the question Q&A is now open. For those who have any questions or anything to express, just feel free. We have Sandeep and Brittney here to answer.
I probably missed it, but where exactly has this been socialized?
Great question. So we recently had our first conference. So we socialized it through that, and on LinkedIn as a platform. Sandeep has also created the core team and community page. So we have a community portal, sustainable, a website as well, and yeah, many different platforms actually. So, but happy to share further with you.
So you
Absolutely. And sorry, just to add to it, right? We have a Slack channel as well, which we have recently launched with around 150 members. So I would like to invite everybody to participate in there and help us refine this further. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go ahead.
So you haven't published anything in book form yet?
No, we haven't published anything in the book form yet. Yeah, that's correct. It's all digital. We are relying on social media and various forums to make sure this gets adopted. Some of the companies and corporations who have already adopted this values, they have been reaching out to me, and I've been adding their links and references on our website sustainagile.org, which is our primary mode of referencing and updating all the things about the manifesto.
Now, I know there are a number of other extensions of the Agile Manifesto, like Agile 2. Have you talked to any of the people involved with any of those?
I did. In fact, we talked to the modern Agile people as well, and the Agile 2 as well. But most of them are still focused on delivering business value, and this takes it further, where now we are combining the value for everybody, and then combining sustainability and agility. So it has a very different flavor and extension to what the Agile manifestos are currently trying to cover.
Okay, so any more questions from anyone in the team here? Okay. I think we are good with questions. Once again, thank you, Brittney, and thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Honor to be here.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much, guys.